everyone, and good afternoon to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon and my esteemed panel of event specialists and venue specialists. We're really excited to have you all here with us. We've all been through a crazy few months, and at AAXO, we firmly believe that now more than ever, we need to reconnect with the members of our industry. It's all about collaboration, communication, and connecting with each other. And I'm sure that you will all agree that despite all our lobbying, it's still a very sad state of affairs for our industry. Domestic tourism is open, but we as an event and exhibition industry have been left behind. But we are still continuing our work at the SA Events Council, together with 13 associations that form the council to lobby government to safely reopen our industry. Now, today we're here to give you the tools and support as we gear up for 2021. And to kickstart that, we're talking to our panel of venue experts from some of the key venues around the country, and we're talking about gearing up for business in 2021. So today I'm very excited to be joined by my panel, who we haven't chatted to in a long time. It's hard doing business in this kind of environment, but we brought them out of their venues and for you to interact with. Thank you to all of you who have given us questions for the webinar as well. We will be going through them during the course of the session. If there's any more questions, please feel free to pop your questions into the chat box. We've opened the chat box. We know you love to see each other in some way or form, and here's a way of you to start connecting. Drop your questions in there. We have a few poll questions to ask and to measure your confidence levels about gearing up for 2021. So who do we have together with us today? We're very excited. Firstly, we have joining us Craig Barrington. Craig is from the CTICC. He is the GM of Facilities and Operations. Now, Craig, for those of you who don't know, has been employed with the CTICC since 2011, and he's been there, so that's for the past 9 years now. He was promoted to General Manager in 2015, and he is at the heart of the CTICC. So a very warm welcome to you, Craig. Where are you? Can we see you? So people know that you really are here.
Hi, Projeni, I really am here.
There you go. He's here in the flesh. So, Craig, a very warm welcome to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Happy to see all your venue mates, I'm sure.
Yes, I am. I'm happy to see everybody joining on the chat group. I see quite a few industry colleagues. So, hello to everybody.
Thank you, Craig. And then next up, we're going alphabetically, guys, and that's why Craig was destined to be first with his name and his venue. But next up, nevertheless, we have Scott Langley, who's the Marketing, Sales and Events Director at the Durban ICC. Scott, obviously managing a huge portfolio at the Durban ICC, again, a venue that has been with us for many, many years. And Scott also has a legacy at the Durban ICC, integrally involved in all aspects of their brand, their reputation, their marketing, their sales, and the performance, and the key person for us to talk to as organizers and suppliers to the industry. So a very warm welcome to you, Scott.
Thank you very much for having me today, Projeni.
You know, today we can just have to share with you, those of us in Joburg, you think that it's Durban today because we're sitting with 27 degrees here in Joburg for once. So we're truly, truly excited. We're missing the beach lots, but we can say that it feels like a Durban day.
Well, we're happy to share some Durban weather with you up there.
Thanks for bringing it along, Scott. Right, next up we have one of our locals in Johannesburg, and that is Adele Hartdegen, who is the CEO of the Johannesburg Expo Center and Dogan Events. And firstly, I'd like to say a big congratulations to Adele in her new role. Adele joined GL Events in 2014, and has grown in her position there, heading up marketing and business development, and now being appointed the CEO of the Johannesburg Expo Center. We really proud of your efforts, and we're thrilled to have some girl power in the CEO mix, Adele. So a very warm welcome to you, and thank you so much for being willing to share your experiences and your plans for the future at the Johannesburg Expo Center.
Thank you so much, Projeni, and thank you also for the initiative in setting up this panel. I think, as I said to you earlier this week, it's time for the venues to start saying what we're up to and what we're busy with and what we think is coming. So yeah, we're very excited about the session, and I'm happy to meet all my fellow venue colleagues on the online platforms.
Wonderful. Thanks, Adele. And then following Adele, we have Shaun Bird. Now, Shaun is the general manager, as you all know, also has his stripes in the industry, been around for a long time. Shaun, I hope I'm not giving away ages here. But Shaun is also iconic with the Sandton Convention Center. He's the general manager there, and he's played a key role in developing the Sandton Convention Center. And he is a key role player for many of us, our go-to person at the convention center. And we're really excited to have him on board with his history in events being since 1995, from what I can see here. He has a wealth of knowledge and information that he will share with us. And I'm sure all his past experiences will definitely help us going forward and helping us gear up for 2021. So welcome, Shaun.
Thank you, Projeni. Thanks to everybody who's tuned in today. Appreciate you having you with us.
Wonderful. And lastly, we have another local from our end of the world, that is in Hartdegen, and that's Mike Lord. Now, Mike Lord is representing Cynthia Penphrase today, who is the general manager at the Ticketpro Dome. Unfortunately, she's not available, but Mike Lord is the managing director of Alliance Safety Management, and he Alliance Venue and Facilities Management, and is a firm role player within the Ticketpro Dome environment, and speaks on behalf of the Ticketpro Dome. I'm sure we all know Mike. Mike has a reputation for sure, training us in the event safety environment and being the backbone to many events, also holding a career that spans many years in the event and exhibition industry, and actually at this point in time, a key role player in the SA Event Council. Mike is the chair of the Event Safety Council, and he's been integrally involved in developing our new safety protocols that have been put together for our industry, which we all is going to be our goal, and which we all have to work very closely with so that we can open events safely. Now, the big question around opening events obviously is safety. So Mike, we're really excited to have you with us today.
Thanks, Projeni. I'm grateful to be part of this esteemed committee. I haven't run a venue for a while, so it's nice to be a part of it. And I think, not only are we trying to build the events industry into something, it's, the venues are going to play an integral part in it. So it's great that we're having this kind of platform and forum to talk about things.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mike. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you for those of you who are online. Thank you for joining us and giving us your time today. It's the start of a conversation. And that's what's really, really important. We need to get this conversation started because we need to get our industry reopened, and that is critical. Like I said earlier, sadly, everybody's elated to be on level 2 and have all these services opening, and we've been forgotten, and we need to start shouting louder than we've ever done before. And in order to do that, we need you to connect with us. We need you as an industry to collaborate with us and let our voices be heard. We are an industry that is critical to the reigniting of business in different industry sectors, and our venues play a critical role in helping us bring back the participation of both our exhibitors and our attendees to our events. So we're very excited to be joined here today, and this is going to be a very insightful discussion that I believe we'll all be able to take great nuggets to go back with and plan for 2021. But before we start this, I'd like to run a poll right now to measure your confidence and to see when you will be participating in events. So Shaun from DMG Events is running our webinar today. Shaun, if you could put that first poll up, and that will give our panelists an idea of what is happening next year. I'm sure their bookings say just that too. So as an attendee to our webinar today, are you planning to organize or participate or supply an event in the first quarter of 2021? Has anything been confirmed as yet? Is there anything in the pipeline? Yes, no, or maybe? If you can please log your answers to that. That's quite interesting. There's been great debate about when events will come online. I think we're all very hopeful that the first quarter will be online, and I hear that many calendars are getting filled up. March seems to be a popular month, it seems. But then some people are betting on quarter two as well. So let's see what those results are, Shaun. Wow, there we go. Quarter two is looking really, really positive. So 48% of people on the webinar today saying yes, that they are definitely planning to organize or participate or supply an event in the first quarter of 2021. 29% saying no, and 23% saying maybe, that they would like to look at 2021. And we too would really like to look at 2021. We hope that will come online really soon. So to start the discussion today, I've asked all our panelists to prepare a little presentation first to give us an idea of how their venues are working towards 2021 and the reopening of our industry. So for now, we're going to kickstart with Craig Barrington from the CTICC. You will have a chance as attendees to ask questions. There have been a few questions that have been asked already that we will discuss once all the panelists are done. But now I'm going to hand over to Craig, and I'll ask all the other panelists. We'll just put our cameras off and our mics off so we can give Craig the floor. Thank you, Craig. It's all up to you.
Thanks, Projeni. I'm just sharing my screen. I can just confirm that it's being seen.
Yes, we can see
Good.
you.
Right. Hi, everybody. Projeni, Naksha, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to tell you about what we at the CTICC are doing to gear up for business events in 2021, and in fact for the years beyond that. I don't think any of us can say that this COVID-19 pandemic hasn't had a massive impact on all of us, but I think it is incumbent upon all of us to look at the positives that we can find in this dire situation. And we at CTICC have definitely looked and found some positives for our industry. We've looked at smarter ways of doing business, ways to upskill our staff through e-learning and other methods, innovations to find innovative ways of looking at our venue and functional space, and what we can do to utilize the space. The cons are longer than what I've actually catered for here, but from a cons, the industry, there's been an impact on employment. Businesses have been closing. There's a reluctance for people to travel, and with no international travel at the moment, and then should international travel come back, we don't know yet, but there could be isolation or quarantine on both sides for people traveling. There's a reluctance of people to host events, and people are scared. We are all scared. And then there's an impact on all of us from the requirements for larger venues to accommodate social distancing. But where to from here? It's not just about pros and cons, because we've postponed 107 million rands worth of events, and we've had to cancel 64 million rands worth of events. So it's a massive impact on us, but where do we go to from here? And it's all about communication. We need to communicate, and we've seen the need to communicate with our clients, with our visitors, with everybody about what we're doing. And then there's collaboration. Collaboration, Projeni touched on this earlier on, about how venues and organizers need to collaborate, certainly from risk assessment perspectives, and what procedures have been put in place, and how are we going to deal with situations where people present symptoms maybe. So that needs to be looked at. And how are we going to control sort of access control into the venue and the multiple accesses that will need to be controlled for to ensure the queue lines don't get too long, and to ensure that there's social distancing, and how to deal with those people. How we will pre-register and cater for people. We at CTICC, we've employed a system from the WITS Health Consortium, which is a POPI compliance system. It's called COVID Screen. And COVID Screen will be used for the screening of all visitors that come into the venue. And then it's how we share that information, protect that information, give that information off to the Department of Health to ensure that the information remains secure, but then tracing can take place. We have also implemented tremendous number of safety measures in the event spaces. You can see from the photos, those of you who know our venue is looking like a bit of a Christmas tree now, in fact. And we've increased sanitizing all over the place, increased signage to everybody, making sure everybody knows what the processes are, what to do, how they must enter, what needs to be done in the venues. We've redone our capacity charts that now comply with the latest regulations and the maximum capacities per venue. Sanitizing is everywhere. Touchless sanitizers are available throughout the venue. And it's not only in the circulation spaces, but we are providing it in all the venues as well, so that there can be intermittent sanitizing taking place during the event. In our food and beverage spaces, we've always been ISO 22000, we followed the ISO 22000 food safety framework, but unfortunately we're no longer going to be doing buffets, well, not in the distant future anyway. So it'll be a plated service, individually packed meals. We've been very fortunate having just hosted the Hospital of Hope. We've learned a lot about individually pre-packed meals to be able to feed the patients. So we believe we've got that down pat now. We've designated areas for coffee breaks. We've employed the services of a cashless service provider to deal with cashless transactions. So from a food safety perspective, we believe that we're also ready to deliver food to our clients. And then what we see is very, very important. It's our staff. Our staff are an informed workforce. We've engaged in a comprehensive and repeated awareness and training campaign for all our staff, and have appointed additional health and safety officers as well as COVID-19 compliance officers, so that we believe we can cater for all events going forward. And this is the message that we're sending out to the authorities. We've engaged with the authorities as well, just to get their advice on how they believe we are shaping up to be able to deliver events. But then it's the events themselves. We have established permanent hybrid events venues, as well as a virtual event studio, just to ensure that we can get the message out. So our hybrid event venue seats 50 packs. You can see a picture of it in the top of the slide there. And our service partners, we've tested them. They are able to deliver these events. And from a studio perspective, we believe we have probably the best platform to deliver events in the studio space. So looking forward, it's not all about hybrid events. It's not all about virtual events. Even though I think that that's going to be around for a long, long time. It's how do we deal with things just in the near future, the way we, as close to the normal as we know it. So we as a team, we have also started to look at a forward book, both from a internal event perspective. We are definitely going to be doing some of our own events, and we've had quite a few think tanks and strategy sessions about how we go about developing events should events not come back to us. Fortunately, we, in the next 3 years, we still have 219 contracted events on our forward book, and we're hoping things return. We're hoping that those events still stay with us. The events haven't, mostly events are being postponed and they're not being cancelled. So for those of you looking to book new events, the new bookings for 2021 from a rates perspective, we're maintaining the 2020 rates. And if space is available for social distancing, whether space is available and required for social distancing, we will engage with each individual client on a case-to-case basis and assist with further discounting where we're able to offer the space and the best discount that we can do. Catering spaces, if we have the space available, we will provide catering spaces as well to try and accommodate wherever we can. So the bottom line is people need to talk to us, and we are willing to try and help wherever we can. Thanks, Projeni.
That's wonderful to know, Craig. I think I love the open sense of communication and the open lines that you're putting out to our industry. I think that's really, really important, because there's a great deal of anxiety, as we all know, and it's, you know, the uncertainty of whether, you know, it's worth it to start that communication. And I think as for all organizers, it's important to have communication with each of the venues that you're dealing with. I see, I mean, so the hospital is completely closed now?
The hospital is closed. They've started their breakdown procedure, and all the Western Cape government has removed most of the equipment already. They will probably finish with the removal of their equipment by the end of this month, and thereafter Scan will start breaking down what they had established there as well.
And so you're right, you probably learned a great deal from that entire interaction of hosting the hospital and trying to keep those safety protocols in place. That must have been quite a big test towards going forward, towards the general public and attendees.
A massive learning curve, and thankfully a lot of advice received from the medical professionals through the entire hosting of the hospital. Not one of our staff got infected. So we did treat the hospital as, let's call it, a red zone, and we avoided it as far as we could. But obviously our team, we provided all the food for the hospital. So our teams needed to interact at some level, particularly from the building operations people and from the food and beverage perspective. But thank heavens, nobody got infected.
Well, that's great. That's great news for everybody, I think. Craig, there's a question here from Chanel George, who says, would you be able to forward the capacity charts of the CICC if we could send those to the organizers? Has that changed?
The capacity charts have changed. We have compiled capacity charts for each venue. Obviously, some of the venues can't even accommodate 50 packs. But yes, we are able to make those capacity charts available. And Chanel, anytime you deal with us all the time, so yes, we can make it available.
Absolutely. So obviously, I mean, now we limit to 50, and next year, hopefully, Mike, you listening hard, so we can push this very well when we meet with the minister sometime soon. When we get back to normal, those capacity charts obviously still going to change. I mean, there's a question here as well saying that in the UK, you know, they're looking at they're opening on the 1st of October, and they're looking at their law is 1 per every 10 square meters, and that is huge. And the question is, do we feel this might happen in South Africa? And how does this affect risk-taking areas like seminar theatres and meeting areas?
I think it'd be very dangerous for us to speculate about what could happen in South Africa. As we know, this is a moving target. We redid our capacity charts when social distancing was 1.5 meters in each direction. And then we had just done all our signage and all our stickers and all our capacity charts, and we put it all up, and then it changed to 2 meters. So the target is moving. I certainly don't want to speculate. I think it would be dangerous for any of us to speculate. It could get more stringent than what it is. But right now, we're looking at 5 square meters per person, maybe 6 square meters per person. And so our occupancies are down to 30, 40% of what the venue occupancy was previously. So we're going to struggle to get numbers. We're doing an event right now that we're planning. We were engaged with the city officials this morning on it. 480 packs, and effectively it took both buildings to be able to try and accommodate these people with 12 separate entrances.
Wow.
So it's a good test for us.
It is. Testing, and we'll find our way out. But Craig, there are a few other questions. If you could have a look at the Q&A panel, and whilst Scott goes on with his presentation, maybe you can answer some of those. Thank you very much, Craig, and we'll chat soon again. We have a few other questions that we're going to chat as a general panel. So thanks to you. Next up, we're going to introduce Scott. And Scott Langley is from the Durban ICC. So welcome, Scott, and the floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Projeni. And great presentation from Craig, and great to see a lot of the same kind of precautions and measures that they've put in place and that we've done on the same on our side. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it shows unity in the industry, and I think that also helps to build confidence across our sector, confidence in our clients, confidence hopefully in the government, so that we can, you know, get to that reopening back at full steam again. I don't think it's a bad thing if you're seeing kind of some of the same things that we've implemented on our side that CTICC has done on their side. You know, when we were faced with the outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic in Durban, you know, we'd had international events lined up on our side. When the first case was announced in South Africa, we had an international event the very next day. And so there was this media frenzy that kind of, you know, we were inundated with in terms of, you know, what were the measures, did we have them in place? And it was good that we could respond positively and say that we'd already implemented those measures, and that, you know, we had those things like the hand sanitizing and so forth already in place, and that those events could still proceed even though we'd already had outbreaks in the country. But now, you know, looking towards the future and knowing that this isn't something that's going away in anytime soon, I suppose the thing is to say how much of this is going to become just part of our lives as event organizers and as venues and as an industry, and how much is going to fade over time. But you know, the local and international travel restrictions coming into effect, and hopefully we'll see those fading in the next few months, and really looking around the fight against the silent killer. The Durban ICC obviously values the health and safety of all our patrons and our employees and our stakeholders as our top priority. And as an organization, we value life, and we strive to do our utmost best in supporting the fight against this virus. So as a matter of practice, we've always ensured the optimum hygiene standards to promote and maintain a safe and healthy space for all our visitors. But at this time especially, we've implemented all of the World Health Organization's protocols for hosting meetings, which include obviously providing the touch-free alcohol-based hand sanitizers at all of our entrances and at stations throughout the center. So if any of our visitors feel that throughout the day they need to just have a top-up and just freshen up their hands, then you know, these are stationed throughout the center and they can do that. As well as CTICC, we've got the signage, extensive signage throughout the center, always advising clients, you know, when they step into the lift, how many people are allowed in the lift at any one time, and so forth. Like Craig, we've also had to go through that process of redoing all of our seating plans and all of the various seating styles. As you can imagine, in a center the size of the Durban ICC, you know, this is no small task. So we're grateful to our floor plan guys for all of the work that they've done in getting this done, and we're happy to provide this to clients as well, in all of the various seating styles in all of the venues, so we can roll that out to clients as it's required. One of the requirements from World Health Organization at the start of all of the events is to do a COVID-19 health and safety briefing. So we're doing that at the start of every event, just to make sure that whoever's coming through our doors is well versed with the sound information about the virus and about the protocols that need to be followed while they're in the building, and that there's no fake news that's being spread. All delegates and all staff are required to wear the face masks during the duration of the event. That's a non-negotiable. Obviously, all high-touch surfaces, door handles, escalator rails, any of the surfaces that the culinary department uses for food service, those are sanitized regularly throughout the day within the venue. Prior to arrival at the center, we use a screening app, which really helps speed up the process. So our staff can also just complete this app before arrival at work. They just they fill in their details, they complete this questionnaire on their phones, and complete the information about any symptoms that they might be having, and then they just submit this from their phones. That updates a report that we've got access to in real time. It sends an SMS through to the relevant people, and then they get access to the venue when they arrive at the center. They also do the temperature screening when they arrive. Delegates would have the same sort of process that they would go through as part of the risk register that we implement on our side. If they're not able to get access to that app, we can then also provide that health questionnaire for screening purposes on arrival. WHO requires that we keep these records for a minimum of 1 month after the event for traceability purposes. Additional precautions that we've taken in our kitchens include like a buzzer that sounds every 30 minutes, prompting the chefs to wash their hands, mop the floors, sanitize the working surfaces. We've also gone the whole route of individual packaging now for all of the culinary service, cashless, obviously, for all of the transactions. This can be done either with the credit cards or through our online payment gateway. Other things that we've got operating in our culinary is the UV light sanitizers. These are used to neutralize the microorganisms and sterilize the knives in our culinary department. And then one of the, obviously the major way that you can stay safe is obviously by doing what we're doing right now, is actually going the hybrid route and going the virtual route. And this is a space that we've played in for a long time. I think going right back to September last year, before anyone had heard the word coronavirus, we were running hybrid and live streaming events with our clients from the venue and operating these events ourselves. I think the major change that we've made is just by reinventing the way that we do this under coronavirus and lockdown circumstances, is really just by adding the ability to run the entire events from an online perspective, and being able to have not even the presenters and the facilitators have to come on site. We can patch the presenters in completely remotely. We can add in all of the lovely graphics, and we can put in the pre-recorded videos, and we can really expand we've been able to expand our online offerings in that way. And so that's been the exciting journey that we've been on during this time. And so while we still really love the face-to-face, I don't think that's ever going to pass away. I think this is a great solution for the crazy times that we're living in right now. And it is a fantastic solution to a number of our clients who do rely on their events, for their sustainability. But I do think that in the long term, what we really are looking for is going to be this combination of the face-to-face and really the live streaming, and that's going to be part of the new normal, I'm sure, in 2021 and beyond. And so while we've always strived to be positioned as Africa's leading convention center, I think with this increased investment into our digital side of our business, I think the Durban ICC is really aiming to be recognized as Africa's smartest convention center as well. And then really, I think the other side of our business is really on the partnership side with our clients, and really moving from just being a venue to being a valuable business partner, and to help the clients reach the greatest possible audience for each of their events, and to really overachieve on their event objectives. And I think the technology helps us to really over-deliver on our clients' objectives during this time. And then really, we really just want to reaffirm our commitment to continue creating the inspiring experiences that exceed our customers' expectations in innovative, sustainable, and proudly African ways. And that's really what we see as the way that the Durban ICC can move into not only the events that we're running right now, but into 2021 and beyond.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Scott. There are obviously lots going on behind the scenes there. And I love that the fact that you've been able to dabble in the hybrid and the virtual part of it before that as well, which is really great. But on that point particularly, Scott, I wanted to ask, is it financially feasible for the venue and the organizer going the hybrid way compared to before?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think you just have to run a couple of scenarios on the back of a cigarette box, I was going to say, but nobody smokes anymore. But on a serviette, you can just run a couple of scenarios, and if you start looking at the audiences that you're really able to reach, you still need to market your event, you still need to promote your event. But when you start removing the barriers around travel and the barriers around the costs that are associated maybe with the accommodations and the flight and all of the other stuff that goes along with running a physical event, and you're really just left with the registration costs of attending an event, you're still providing high quality content. You still have experts in their field that have spent a lot of time preparing the presentation and the content that goes into these wonderful events that are being presented. That registration cost offers amazing value for money. And if those events are promoted well, and if they're marketed well, and the event organizers have enough time to really get the word out about their event. We're finding that event organizers can attract far greater audiences in the online market than they have previously done in the face-to-face events. And when you start getting that multiplier effect, then you start seeing that the numbers really work in your favor. And what's really exciting for us is that the new business models that are available to organizers, with a little bit of creativity and the partnerships, I think that that we're able to offer from a venue side, because we've invested in this technology, we're able to bear a lot of those costs, and then we're able to be creative in terms of how we structure those business models with event organizers and with clients who've really been hard hit during the lockdown. We're not oblivious to that, but because we've invested in that already, we're able to then be creative on the upfront cost side, and whether it's ticket sales, sharing models, or those sorts of things, we can be very creative in terms of how we partner with clients on hosting their events online.
Wonderful. I like that idea, Craig. I think, Scott, that's really important. And Craig mentioned it earlier in terms of communication and being able to chat to clients and keeping that door open. And at the same time, what you're saying is, and bringing those words of partnership around as well, gives organizers a sense of ease as well, knowing that you're not alone in this and that you're willing to bring the wealth of experience that you have as venues from a variety of clients to be able to assist a particular organizer, whether they be big or small. And that's really an approachable way of doing it. So well done to you and the team. Thank you, Scott. So whilst we're talking about that, I mean, we all have great ideas. And I think as venues, it's amazing the amount of work that's going on behind the scenes. But in order to do that, everybody's been rallying around the word of confidence right now and building confidence. And we're hoping that this kind of webinar will help build confidence in our industry as well, to get out there to show you that venues want to partner with you. So I'd like to pose a question to our audience right now before we move on to Adele. So Shaun, if you please bring up that poll for me. I want to know, do you think that exhibitor participation will increase or decrease in 2021? If you could answer that question for me. So it's, do you think that exhibitor participation will increase or decrease in 2021? Just choose increase or decrease. That's interesting to find out. Because there's lots of theories around that. Some people are more confident than others. If you could all punch that answer in, and if all the answers are in, Shaun, if you could give us the results of that, because that is key. It plays a vital role in terms of us bringing out our exhibitions again. Will we have a better participation or less participation? In some countries, they have seen an increase in participation from both visitors and exhibitors. So it would be interesting to see your results. So, wow, 76% of you feel that there'll be a decrease and 24% believe that there'll be an increase. Okay. Depressing as it may be sounding, now you're going to answer this question for me. Why, if you said increase, you will answer the question, why do you think it will increase? And if you said decrease, I've given you a few options here as to why do you think it will decrease. So Shaun, if you'll pull up the next poll for me. If you think it increases, if exhibitors' participation increase, what would the key reason be for that? Confident in the safety precautions from the venue and organizer. They feel confident that we're doing our jobs, that we may keeping them safe. The exhibitor participation will increase because they believe in the success of face-to-face platforms, or there's a vaccine available. And that will why we'll see one of the reasons for the increase. But you'd have to choose one. Which do you think would be most important for exhibitors to see them coming out again? Yes, I know. I'm going to say don't say vaccine, but yes, for some people that might be the ultimate reason why they participate. But for some, it might just be about because they want to get back to business and they want to meet people face to face. And that's what our industry is all about. And for some people, all it might take is us building confidence in showing them safety. Wow, that's a nice result to see. So if we have an increase in exhibitor participation, the main reason would be because our industry, our clients believe in the success of face-to-face platforms. Confidence in safety precautions from the venue and organizer coming in at 21% and the vaccine at 21%. That's very interesting. Thank you, Shaun. And if it decreased, why would it decrease? I mean, yes, that would be that's the next poll, right, Shaun? Yes. What would be the key reason for exhibitor participation to decrease? Lack of confidence in the venue and organizer, businesses have closed, budgets have been cut, or they're pivoting to digital. Why? Which reason would that be? So do they lack confidence in us as venues and organizers? Many businesses have closed down, and some of them have not closed their businesses, but they've certainly cut their budgets for things like exhibitions, or they found greater success in the digital platforms. And let's see what those answers are. Right, so budget cuts has been the reason for exhibitor participation to decrease, the biggest one at 85%, a lack of confidence at 7%, 32% saying businesses may have closed, and 8% saying they're pivoting to digital. Thank you, that's really very interesting. So now I'd like to hand over to Adele from the Johannesburg Expo Center, the newly appointed CEO, to share her plans at the Johannesburg Expo Center. And the floor is over to you. Thank you, Adele.
Thank you, Projeni, and good afternoon, everyone. So first of all, I think a short update from the Johannesburg Expo Center and what we've been doing during the lockdown, if we can call it lockdown period, or the period that we've been unable to operate our normal activities. So we've spent a lot of time in terms of relooking the venue processes and what processes we can improve, what we need to implement for the way forward. We've been attending a lot of international webinars and leveraging quite heavily on our venues network from the GL events perspective. So there is great benefit to us in being part of this international group of venues. 51 of them in total. We've been able to pull quite a bit of resources from them in terms of what they've been doing. We've also been doing a lot of our own research and running a few possible models of what the industry will look like going forward and what we will look like going forward. And we've been fortunate with the isolation and quarantine facility that we've got, that we've had all our staff trained and inducted by the Department of Health, as well as all our on-site contractors, which gives us a big level of comfort for when we do reopen the industry, that our guys already know what to expect and how to operate. So at this point with our venue, that we've got a lot of our spaces activated, and they will probably stay as such until at least December this year. Not all of them so much around the quarantine facility, but more around the other activities that we've put in place. Sorry, Projeni, can you see the screen now?
It is loading.
Okay.
We're not seeing your presentation just yet.
It's still just on a picture of the venue, so you're not missing out much yet.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I can't see that yet, but anyway, I'm sure it'll be loading.
Okay. You want me to try and share a different version, perhaps?
Maybe. Shaun, Shaun, can you see Adele's screen?
Unfortunately, I don't see the presentation being loaded.
Okay, maybe we can share a different version, Adele, and you can talk us through it in the meantime. That's fine.
Let me just try the other version before we do that.
Sure, no problem. Give us a few minutes. Whilst Adele is doing that, there's been a question here for Scott. Scott, if you don't mind. It says Craig mentioned that they would be maintaining 2020 rates. Will the ICC in Durban be doing the same for 2021, or will there be increases?
Yes, yeah, we've taken the same approach, and yeah, we're holding our rates for the current year and going into, so we've got a financial year that runs until July. So we run from July until June every year, and so we're holding last year's rates for another year as well, so that we can do what we can to lessen the blow. So yeah, we've taken the same approach.
That's great news. And Craig, there's one here for you, talking about your cashless systems that you've implemented. The question about who did you bring on board to do that?
Projeni, thanks for that. I have responded to, was anonymous attendee. I've asked them to contact me directly. I don't want to put it in the public. We've got public tender processes that we run here, so I don't want to put the name out in the public.
No
but
problem.
they're welcome to contact me, speak with them directly.
No problem. That's absolutely understandable. If there's any other questions, ladies and gentlemen, that's on our attendee list, please pop them into the Q&A box, and our panelists will get to it as soon as we can. If there are open questions, we will ask them as well. Adele, how are we doing there?
We can try again.
All right, let's
see if it's working now.
No, it's not. So Adele, do you know what I'm going to do? We're going to share, it's not working here, but I think I've sent it to Shaun as well. I'm going to see if Shaun can share the screen for you, and you can carry on with the presentation in the meantime.
Okay.
Super.
All right, so to continue with the activities that we have been busy with since the standstill period is we've also been very busy, obviously, with our existing customers that were in contract in 2020 to assist them to renegotiate contracts or postpone different events. I think that's been an activity that all the venues were faced with, and it took up quite a bit of time, but we managed to conclude all of them very positively. In terms of the implementations with signage and getting the venue ready for operations again, I'll be honest to say that we haven't been that active in that space, simply because we are waiting for the final regulations to be published, at which point we'll know exactly what is expected of us in terms of the setup of the venue and what sort of signage and what sort of distancing they want. Although we have been putting in place all our new venue capacity charts so that we can see what the facilities will look like going forward and what number of people we can accommodate in the various facilities. We have got the normal protocols in place in terms of our security checks and people being temperature scanned at the gates and recording where people are coming from and keeping a register of who visits the venue on a regular basis. We've also implemented some more technical solutions at the venue. So looking at some upgrades like Wi-Fi and putting in some smart solutions with the Wi-Fi so that we know when we do reopen, we are ready to assist our customers with the technical parameters that they might require. Right. I'm going to try and open a low-res version of the presentation my side, but it's got the wrong imaging on, so we will send out the right one afterwards. I'm hoping that this one will work. Right, so in terms of the key focus areas for change, I took a little bit of a different approach. I was part of the MBB exhibitions think tank that was running across June and July this year, where we were about 150 professionals in the industry worldwide, mostly made up of venues and organizers with some suppliers. And at the end of the study, the items that people came forward saying were the most critical for them. Oh gosh, it's still not working. I don't know if Shaun can manage to put this up on his side.
Yes, don't worry, Adele. We're just trying to get it up, but you can continue. We'll try and get your presentation up. We're just trying.
It's got some statistics in, so I'll explain through them, but would be nice if everyone could see them.
Yes, absolutely.
So maybe just to start on the key points that came out of the think tank was what needed to change in the industry. And the key points that the guys highly rated, or let's call it most frequently rated, was the value proposition within our industry. And that was about 91% of the candidates felt that we need to repackage our value proposition. About 90% of them came up with a frequency that the show and the venue setup had to change. And the categories below that was more involved with the strategy of how to support and build the industry, the design of the event itself, health and safety. There was quite a high rating of about 63% on customer centricity, and then also sustainability and the size and duration of the event was also a key factor. So when we then rated these elements between 1 to 10 in terms of the importance, the three that came out on top overall was the value proposition, the show and venue setup, and the customer centricity. And we went through this process for about a month and a half, concluded on a 170 odd page report, which was quite intense. And when I went through the report again this week, there were some key points I could draw out of it for this presentation. So in terms of the value proposition, we have to start focusing on how we better define the value that we deliver to our visitors and our exhibitors. And that the events that we host or the exhibitions that we host become a year-round activity, with the face-to-face component becoming the highlight and the conclusion of this year-round activity. A lot of the candidates felt that we needed to move away from the conventional setups, that our normal exhibition layouts were getting a bit boring, if I can say it like that without offending anyone. This is just the feedback from them in general. And that we need to look at more pre-built exhibition solutions, especially because we know that there will most likely be a change in terms of build-up and breakdown times. And then also to implement all of this with sustainability, which undoubtedly would be the biggest challenge for all. I think from the assessments that we did in the study, a lot of what we could see was that the implementation of the catering no longer being buffet and having to be pre-packed meals, that would basically lead to less sustainability. And if we go the sustainability route with packaging materials, obviously a very high cost increase. So some things to consider in that space.
Adele, I've got your presentation. So just let me know which page you want me to go to.
We're on page 2 now. We can go to page 3.
Okay, there we go. Perfect.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
All right. So the key focus area being redefining the industry value proposition to ensure that we have customers returning to the exhibition floor. On page 4, I put some points down in terms of the support to the industry from the Johannesburg Expo Centre, what we have got in mind. So obviously the focus for us in 2021 is to partner with organisers in terms of our pricing model and to support the industry upstart. The same as what was announced by some of the other venues, we will not be doing price increases in our square meterage space from 2020 to 21. We will keep our pricing consistent. And we've looked at obviously anticipating that there will be an increase in the square meter space under the COVID regulations, but obviously for the organisers, some reduced expenses budgets because there'll be much more dead space for them in the event that they can't actually, that's not sellable. So we've got a bit of a unique value proposition with how our venue is laid out. And when we looked at that, we assessed that it would be a very good option for us to reconfigure the center, or not reconfigure, it's already set up like that, but to give more dedicated entrance points per hall. So we've got the benefit that most of our venues has got their own turnstile or own gate access, which would allow us to almost split events into different sections. So for our larger trade shows and exhibitions, we could dedicate a hall to a specific theme, which is the norm that is being done, but then give those delegates their own entrance point, own registration point, and obviously split that into different days that they would attend the exhibition. And this is also a point that came up in the study, was that for the organizers, it would be good to consider the ticketing in a different way going forward, in terms of having people actually book tickets on the exact day that they're going to attend the event, instead of just leaving it open for them to attend across the 3 to 5 day period. Right, and then very important would be to look at a responsibility matrix to ensure that the protocol is covered and who takes ownership in which category. So this would basically be around partnering with both the organizer and the subcontractor and the exhibitor as venue to clearly define upfront who takes responsibility for which portion of the new protocols that need to be implemented. Then on slide 5, we looked at the health and safety aspects, and this, the perspective that I took is from one of the questions that Projeni sent regarding what would we do to make people feel more comfortable to come back to the venue. So obviously enhancing the signage throughout the venue and providing guidelines of how people have to conduct themselves, and giving high visibility both on the site and also online regarding the protocols that the venue will be following along with the organizers, to provide a safe environment for the exhibitors as well as the visitors. Frequent and visible hygiene practices. In a lot of the case studies that we've been looking at, I think we need to gear ourselves possibly towards cleaning a lot more in more frequent intervals than what we are used to. And then also very important, having a protocol for waste disposal. And when we say high-risk items, this would be especially the single-use items. If we plan to have boxes of masks or gloves for participants to use, and also the catering disposables, it's important to put a process in place for how these items will be disposed. So we will use our experience throughout the isolation and quarantine center, that we know our teams know how to work under these circumstances, and pulling through what we've learned in the last few months into safely hosting events at the premises again. And we are in the same situation as CTICC, where we are fortunate that especially our services staff that have been entering the hall to do cleaning, to do catering, that there hasn't been reports of them falling ill, and that for us is already a positive, that the guys are sticking to the guidelines and it's very effective. And then also, I think it would be important to have post-show communications on projects safely delivered. I think once we've started the first event, regardless of the size maybe, it would be good to communicate back to the industry as to how it was conducted, and a post-report of whether there were cases reported after the event. Right, on slide 6. We looked a little bit at what we would have to do as a venue with our services portfolio, and also looking at our risk portfolio. So we would have to redevelop our induction processes to make sure that we can educate all the contractors coming onto the site to include hygiene protocols into the inductions, and then have appointed officers to ensure that there's compliance at all times. We've obviously redefined the capacity for the facilities based on the current social distancing practices, and we do anticipate that those will change again. In terms of catering, I think everyone by now has anticipated or heard that buffets is something that probably for the foreseeable future will be something of the past. And what we need to do here is to get a marriage between the quality of the pre-packed meals and still having that as a sustainable product that we are delivering, so as to not create more wastage per event. In terms of the risk portfolio, we are assessing where single points of failure could occur, and to have a risk management strategy in place that there's no knee-jerk reactions when something does go wrong. And on top of that, we're doing some what-if scenarios. So if I can a little bit better define that, we're basically looking at already ahead of what if certain events do not happen next year, and how will we respond to that, and what can we possibly do to assist the industry, and also to see how we can support in making sure that these events do happen, but having a backup plan for if at any point. Okay, on slide 7, so looking at the international models with GL, we actually received from our colleagues in Shenzhen this little case study about the Hunan Auto Show that they had in China. And I think this was quite gave us a level of comfort in terms of how they operated this event, and that they were able to operate the event under the current circumstances. So this show was hosted from the 30th of April to the 5th of May. And with over 62,000 visitors. And when I was doing some research on it earlier this week, it also said that for the show, they had record attendance, as well as over 600 car models exhibited at the show, which is higher than their normal annual figures. So maybe a little bit of positivity in terms of, will people be returning to the shows or not? And will they be returning in higher volumes than before? So for me, this was quite a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. So looking at the information that the team provided back to us, was some key implementations that they did in order to have the show operate safely and within the parameters set by their government. They had established a lot of prevention and control policies ahead of the event. They had a division of the responsibilities between the venue, the organizer, the exhibitor, and the subcontractor. They had a lot of crowd control and flow management. And what they did put into the report is that quite drastically increased their staff complement in the event. And even with the increased staff complement, they still had some issues with longer queues, just because of the sheer volume of people they were dealing with. In terms of signage and awareness campaigns, they rolled out signage throughout the venue. I think the normal things that we're seeing with the social distancing markers and so forth, they put in place. And then also the regular sanitization pre, during, and post-event. The one element there for me that was quite interesting is that even during the construction part of the event, because of the regulations put in place by their government, they had to sanitize the build-up area 3 times a day, which is quite unknown for us. In terms of the catering implementation, they went the route of providing no catering to the visitors. So they did provide dining halls for the exhibitors, but with very strict protocols and limited to about 3 people per table on their side. They also had a staged entry process, which I thought was quite interesting. So sectioning the entrances and the process within the entrance. And yeah, I see I'm almost out of time, so let me run through the last part quickly. Areas of improvement that they highlighted was sanitization stations at each booth, and that they had problems with social distancing, with people taking off their masks because of the heat in the queues. The staff complement increase, and the additional that they needed post the event, they would anticipate additional staff training, better protocols, and responses to the cases on site. And that's me. Thank you for the opportunity. I hope it was informative.
Thank you so much, Adele. Sorry about the hiccup there, but I'm glad we got online. Thank you for sharing. That was really, really lots of information and lots of insightful information, again, from you guys, lots of work happening behind the scenes. I love the idea of the post-show case study sharing. I think that's going to be really, really important in building that confidence amongst organizers as well, to be able to learn from each of our shortcomings. I think that's really important, I think, for all venues to start implementing. And again, another point that you pointed out there that I think is also important for everybody to take into consideration is to bring in the event greening and the sustainability through it all, you know, with less wastage and those kind of elements. So thank you very much. I have a few questions for you, but I'm going to round back to you after we get Shaun and Mike to deliver their presentations. So thank you, Adele. Shaun, and now we introduce Shaun. I've introduced him earlier, from the General Manager from Sandton Convention Centre. Shaun, the floor is all yours. If you'd like to share your screen, please.
Sure, thanks, Projeni. Let's hope that this works.
I've got it on backup.
Thank you. Are we up and running?
There we are. Absolutely. We can see you.
Fantastic. Thank you. So I've taken a slightly different tack to some of my colleagues, because I figured that at the end of the day, you know, all the panelists are running large organizations, and we're going to be required or mandated to follow all the health and safety protocols. And I'm in agreement with all my colleagues that you know, I think we're going to all be operating along the same sort of lines. I can't speak for colleagues in the smaller venues, but in terms of the RCCs, we're certainly going to be introducing all the protocols that we need to introduce to be able to operate. So I've taken a bit more of from a business point of view than a physical protocol point of view, which I think my colleagues have addressed quite well during the course of their presentation. So I'm going to start it off with just giving those who are not sure exactly what Sandton Convention Centre is all about, sort of a rough run through of our 22,000 square meters, multi-purpose over the 5 levels. And under normal circumstances, we could do 10,000 visitors at any one time. Wish we were back at normal circumstances, but no such luck in terms of that. We've created our scaled floor plans exactly like everybody else has done to allow social distancing. And as, well, what does this mean? Well, as part of Soho Hotels, our current hotel operations are test beds for the future. We're currently hosting the PSL soccer teams, and we're learning a lot, and I'm engaging actively with my hotel colleagues in determining what works and doesn't work in terms of whether it be food, whether it be entry, exit, those type of things. The majority of the events can be managed. We've worked on the 10 square meter UK rule. I'm hoping that we can get away, or not get away, it's a little bit of a levity, but we'd be able to move to slightly higher numbers. But 500 at any one time for exhibitions based on a 5,000 square meter venue. You know, it depends on whether organizers can work around it. I think they probably can. And that's the key here, though, is at any one time. And I think Adele alluded to it, where she said that we would have to encourage people to book spaces, book time slots and that type of thing. And I think what's happened is, in my engagement with a lot of the industry players, is that exhibitions specifically may have to just have longer opening times to be able to accommodate the numbers. Whether people agree or disagree with me on that is open to debate, but I think certain numbers, especially consumer shows, you may have to look at those type of things. Social distancing can be maintained within that, fully secured entrances with mandated COVID-19 precautions, which everybody's discussed, and pre-registering would be critical. And I think, you know, the juries are still a little bit out in terms of the POPI Act and who that information can be shared with. I think at the end of the day, you know, there will have to be a discussion between organizers and venues in terms of the sharing of information. Obviously, as organizers collect that information, permissions given to them to hold that information, to secure it. Whether they then share that with venues would be open to a little bit of a debate in our minds, and that's still sitting with our legal guys in terms of that. Partnering with organizers to maintain a safe and secure environment, I think that goes without saying. And I think those who know me know that I'm pretty interactive with this, and not to do a sales job on you, but if you need to have a chat, have a chat. 2021 trends. This is what we've been picking up as we go along. The majority of our current clients will be hosting in 2021. And I think that survey that you had earlier alludes to the fact that there is still confidence there. The pickups in the new events is slow, as I think sort of people wait to see where they go before they make those commitments, especially on the larger events. And 2021 is quite strong. everything's relative, but it's strong in terms of the 2021 stuff moving into 2021, sorry, 2020 going to 2021, as Craig alluded to. And I think everybody from the bigger centers is at least in the same boat in terms of that. Looking at opportunities for 2021, and this is some of the stuff I've gauged from a lot of interaction with my colleagues, both in the industry and with organizers, is that the market confidence is strong and we are ready to get back to business. The established shows have opportunities to grow in a less crowded marketplace. It may be a sad reality that by the time we get to 2021, the marketplace will not be as crowded as it is now. Duplication of shows and that type of stuff is liable to go away, but I'll get onto a bit of a discussion around that later. Creative ideas are coming to the fore and they're offering great experiences and creativity. I think people realize that doing business, and Adele alluded to this with her survey as well from the international side of things, that value proposition, that creativity, that great experience is going to be what separates shows from each other. The issue around budgets, people are going to prioritize where they spend their money, and the more creative and the greater experience that organizers and venues can offer will encourage, in a way, a bit of a cutthroat market on this. So it might not be all roses for everyone, but the reality of the matter is limited budgets, people are going to choose where to spend them. They're going to spend it where they get the best value. That obviously moves on to the challenges there in terms of the budgets that are tight, and money will need to be the top priority. You know, you can't really sugarcoat that too much. Macroeconomic factors nobody's mentioned actually does bother me slightly. I think, especially for the shows that have international involvement, that could be a bit of a deal breaker. I think government policy, way we move forward, but that's always been a bit of an issue in South Africa anyway, but I think it's just been highlighted, and all this negative press around corruption is not helping us. So we're going to have to bear that in mind and consider. I've already had a couple of international clients discussing that with me. Travel restrictions are going to be the big one in the short term and will limit the participation. There's no clarity on this. And I think that's part and parcel of why we're looking at a slow pickup on new shows. I think people are nervous to jump in on this one, and I don't blame them. I think, you know, it's like anything. We've been waiting months to get clarity on where we're going in terms of the number of people we can host, and that 50, I hate that number. It's turned into a worse number than the year 2020, but that 50 is still with us. And that's really, there's no plan from government, which concerns me the most in terms of this, to be able to create a bit of confidence in the market. Where to from here? International trends will be adapted to take advantage of those who have blazed the trails before us. And I think Adele's presentation on China was fantastic. It will also set the expectations of where we're going to go with this. And I actively encourage all organizers to engage with us on this. And let's see if we can put our heads together and get those expectations met. One of the interesting ones, which nobody's brought up yet, has been the trust accounts. And I think that's going to become more and more popular. And I would suggest that if you are looking to do events in collaboration with international stakeholders or whatever, have a think about trust account. In the US, they call them escrow accounts. We've had a couple of interesting discussions with various international shows around this. And I think as organizers and as venues, you probably need to give this a little bit of thought as to how you're going to handle this. Flexible deposit schedules will need to be developed as a win-win. Again, I think I speak on behalf of most of my colleagues as well, is open the conversation with us. We're more than happy to chat around this. And I think at the end of the day, the venues cannot carry all the responsibility for risk. I think it needs to be a balancing act. Hybrid components are likely to continue in the future, and creativity will set competitors apart from the others. All the hybrid of events that I've sort of looked at or attended or been part have sort of slowly become very similar in their look and feel. And I think creativity here and that component is going to be a huge separator amongst events. I think Scott alluded to it as well in terms of the profitability, or at least the viability of hybrid. And I think it's going to be with us for a while. I personally don't believe it'll be with us forever. I think some of people may disagree with me. I think our need to be social and to mix and do face-to-face, as that one of the polls earlier showed, will outweigh hybrid. And I think we've all got this Zoom fatigue type of thing going on by now. I'm done with them, to be honest with you. Setup and breakdown times need to be balanced with financial and health and safety. I think this is a really serious component we need to look at. Everybody's going to be under pressure to look at getting things done quicker. And with that, there is risk. And I think, you know, we faced this over the last 4 or 5 years that I've been at Sandton Convention Center, where organizers and venues alike are pushing for quicker, shorter setup times. At the end of the day, you know, it's not in no one's interest to have a long setup time. It costs the organizers money, it costs the venues money, and suppliers are under pressure to provide quicker. But with that said, health and safety has to always come to the fore on this, and we cannot compromise on health and safety. And I think, you know, as larger venues, a lot of times we have to crack the whip a little bit when it comes to this, and I think we would still need to do this. And I think COVID's only going to enhance the requirement for us to do that. JOC compliance is going to become way more stringent. I know that with smaller venues, this probably isn't as much of an issue as it is with the larger venues, but we're going to have to increase communication on this. And when I say not just amongst the organizers and the venues, but with the city and all the authorities around this. I mean, we're obviously planning on setting up various meetings once the COVID regulations have been somewhat finalized, or we have to at least have some clarity on it. What can we do now? I think it's critical to start the discussions as soon as possible. Secure dates, invest the time to ensure you're first. I think it's going to be critical that you get your shows together now and get them organized. There's going to be a lot of scampering for limited budgets. And I know everybody wants to hang on and wait and see, but I think the established shows have got a massive advantage here in that they can leverage their bases and they can move on with that. And I think up and coming and new shows need to develop that a lot quicker. It's going to be critical. You know, as much as we all think 2021 is going to be a slow year, large space in the various centers is already booked. So, you know, if you're going to do business in 2021, you need to look at doing it fairly quickly. Take advantage of the disruption to reimagine events, correct timing challenges, and build new bases. One of the keys on this is correct your timing challenges. A lot of the events are too close to each other. They are taking advantage of each other's market. And I think this would be a good time to get that type of thing back in line, whether it be for 2021, 22, or 23, but give us some serious thought now. Invest in the right people to ensure you're well placed to execute. I think this is absolutely critical. A sad fact of the industry at the moment is that there's a huge number of people that are unemployed. It is sad, but it is a reality, and getting the right people into your business now in preparation for 2021 is going to be critical to be able to execute. The expectation is going to be much higher. You cannot have events not running well. They're going to have to be executed by the right people and the right partnerships as well, whether that be tech, whether that be shell scheme, whatever it happens to be. It all needs to be looked at right now. Develop relationships that will offer support into the future, whether they be financial or other. I think the industry is going to have to seriously look at perhaps, I think downsizing is the wrong word to use here, but strategic partnerships. I think that's going to be key to this. I think the larger players in the market will always have their stuff, but I think the smaller guys are going to have to look at getting together on things here and at least weathering some of the storm. If you're still in business after 6 months, chances are you're still going to be in business when everything opens up properly again. So yeah, if you've weathered the initial storm of these 6 months, hopefully everybody will still be around. But I think strategic partnerships are going to become key here. And take advantage of the low and non-cost options to stay relevant or build your brands. I think, you know, everybody loves to tout social media. We're becoming a little bit bored with that as well. But at the same time, be creative. I think, you know, the first thing that any company does when there's tough times, they cut back on their marketing and their advertising. And you can see the logic behind it, but at the same time, you need to stay relevant and take advantage of it. And that's why I've put in the low cost options. You know, engage with the centers. At the Sandton Convention Center, we've always advertised public shows on our websites and our forums, whether it be through our Soho leverage and those type of things. So open that conversation with us, engage with us. You know, it's a no cost item. It's a no brainer. Use those facilities that are available out there in the marketplace. You don't have to spend a fortune to stay relevant. And even if you do something that doesn't cost you anything, it doesn't work, you've lost nothing in terms of that process. So Yep, and I think that's pretty much me. So, Projeni, I'm going to hand back to you. If you've got any questions, let me know.
Thank you very much, Shaun. I appreciate that. That was a nice different take on it all. I think I agree. A lot of you are getting all the safety protocols in place, but how do we take advantage of these opportunities? How we keep our calendars clean and separate and try and still get out there. And I think one of the most passionate points that you mentioned that I'm most passionate about is obviously keeping that marketing and communication channels open, because we fail to do that. And we that's where we want to cut back first. And if we want to grow, absolutely agree, that is key to keep the pressure on those aspects. So thank you, Shaun. I'm going to run back to you, but let's go to Mike Lord first. We've extended our webinar by a few minutes just to accommodate some questions. For those of you that might drop off at 3:30, the presentation will be available on our YouTube channel, AAXO's YouTube channel, and we will be making the presentations available as well. But we do have some key questions that we have that want to be answered, and we're going to get into that immediately after Mike. Just so much of information and such interesting insights and nuggets of information that we could all take back and utilize in our plans and preparations. So Mike, over to you.
Thanks, Projeni. You can hear me okay? You can see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, I'm not going to regurgitate too much of what's in the reopening guidelines that the Ticketpro Dome have developed. I think I'll try and paraphrase some of the things that we've learned today and bring those into it. I think the most important thing in writing the guidelines is we have to learn from our international partners. And in the Dome's case, they've learned from their Reed International Group as the mainstay of where they've come from. And obviously we're taking learnings from what's happening elsewhere. And Adele spoke about that. And that'll help us with our case studies. It'll help South African tourism with their role in helping us brand South Africa and getting us back on the international map. One of the important things is to consider the South African aspect and our laws and our regulations and the reopening guidelines that the Ticketpro Dome have developed are in place and cover those things. And I think the most critical thing in all this discussion today is the duty of care that we have towards our own staff, and everybody's highlighted that, as well as those visitors that are coming to the venue. So, you know, the Dome is slightly different to the international convention centers here. We're, you know, one big box with a convention center alongside. So that means that we're in a situation that, you know, we've got to think big box. You know, when you've got 20,000 square meters, 19,000 people in your venue as a mainstay, you've got to be, you know, quite swift in how we manage that and how we go forward. So, you know, the adopted principles of the Ticketpro Dome are following through are social distancing is key, track and trace, the communication around that process, the communication with your guests, your staff, the process, the protect and detect, and critically your cleaning and your hygiene. So, you know, existing safety is already in place. So COVID-19 has done for us, just heightened that process of what we're dealing with. So, you know, if you do arriving and that kind of stuff, those are the things that you're having to deal with, you know, in this new way of life. And obviously, person's well-being is critical to this process. And critically around that process is people's health. And that needs to go hand in hand with, you know, already existing, you know, safety principles that we the general principles at the Dome, social distancing, 1.5 is what we've worked on based on the regulations that are currently in place that kind of talks to one person per 3 square meters. And that's something we as the industry are pushing forward with in our meetings with the Ministry of Sport, our Ministry of Tourism in getting our industry open. Critically about social distancing is it's going to need education, empowerment. We're going to have stewards on the ground to help us in environments where we have higher number of visitors attending. You know, things like sanitation stations are critical to this in high areas. As they walk in, we're going to need to have those in place, and those have already been worked on and are in place at the Dome. The hand washing process is something that is going to be a norm now, so that, you know, you're not going to get away with not being able to go into a bathroom without needing to know that washing hands is critical. Simple things like putting, you know, changing doors to door handles to modified to foot operated is one of those things. And then, you know, important staff fitness to work and awareness and training is critical around that. One of the things that we're investigating in the Dome, being one venue with one huge big AC system is around how to maximize the fresh air into the venue and the impact that has. And that's things that we're working with our consultants and people around that. Critical to this whole process is the risk assessment. And that cannot be done in isolation. The venue cannot do it by itself. The event organizer cannot do it itself. And those within the event chain can't do it on themselves. So we're going to work really closely with our event organizers in developing a risk assessment around COVID-19 that talks to the control measures. Initially with the convention center part of the dome, they'll concentrate on things like prepackaged meals and a big discussion that came out of our proof of concept event in July that SARCI and South African Event Council did was the amount of plastic. So things like, recycling, event cleaning is very much on the table. And in fact, discussions are already happening this week in webinars around that. I think the dome needs to get to a position that they can start hosting big major, banquet events. So whether we're talking 2,000 to 5,000 people, we've got to start preparing now so that at the end of 2021, those corporates that are coming back and entertaining clients with big music shows, big events, big shows, big experiences can continue. One of the areas around parking, they're looking at doing a pre-parking plan. So in other words, you can book your parking plan or book your parking space. And what that does is it helps you manage your flow into your entrances and those kind of things and minimizes contact. The issue around medical control is an interesting one because right now there are no regulations specific to isolation areas within medical clinics. There's been some mooted by some of the local authorities, and we need to get our head around that. So, we're kind of holding back on that. So with regards to the conference spaces at the dome, those will probably be more implemented from a venue point of view to allow a plug and play situation. But certainly from a big box space, the dome does so many different types of events, different types of, environments, and that's going to need its own risk assessment, own processes, and the event organizer, as per the SASFIA Events Act, has to put those in place. And the dome will hold hands and put that together. Important, not only the existing Occupational Health and Safety Act, but there's a consolidated OSHA acts around COVID-19, as well as the South African Sports and Recreational Events Act, which needs to come into this discussion in how we work our compliance officers and our event safety officers, and all based on what are the control measures, how do we implement it safely and with control. Awareness with staff is one of the big things for the dome, and we're going to use this opportunity to drive general health and safety, COVID-19 awareness, as well as anybody walking the venue. We're going to find electronic systems to be able to engage and talk to the staff member working on the ground, whoever they may work for. Cleaning, important around how that sanitization works and where the client fits into that. And we've spoken about things like 30-minute warnings and that kind of stuff in kitchens. Those are very much kind of in line and par. One of the things that the dome is looking at, I'm just going to move on, so there's a lot within that kind of stuff, is just around the capacity control and those kind of aspects around one-way systems and the logistics of that, creating sessions. So right now we're allowed 50 people in a space, and at the moment some of our engagement is allowing multiple 50 spaces within one venue, and how that looks, as well as creating windows, which also allows us to pre-sell, which we've never really been able to do within a consumer market environment in many regards. So that's something that for us we see as a positive. The idea of spatial and social distancing planning will need to be taken into account. Longer hours to control management are critical. And through all of that is the comfort and protection that the event visitor is going to need to be provided. And we do a lot of business to consumer shows, and those will remain. If you think about the HobbyX show, that still will attract 20,000 people to the event over 4 days, or those people will still attend, and we need to be in a position to manage that process. Our visitor process that we're looking at is online pre-screening, getting QR codes to arrive that allows for a green, orange, and red type scenario, and that allows us to educate and communicate with the guest coming. I suppose in conclusion, the most important part that we have at the moment is we can only do local events and confirm local events now while we plan into 2021. So we have to be thinking about how we get corporate South Africa back to the table. We have to be ensuring the comfort of them spending money again. I think that's key. We are going to learn as we go forward. So whatever we think the plan is now, in our last 6 months, we've experienced how that changes that process. So, whether we look at international case studies, which we are going to have to provide to South African tourism, to the Minister of Tourism with business events, we're going to need to build that trust. And I mean, simply put, we do provide organized, safe environments. And it is very frustrating when we go to environments that are not in that place. But unfortunately, we have legislation that heightens the spread of viruses at our venues. So we have a role to play in making sure that we have heightened plans and controls against that promote safety first. I think, I guess that's what I've got for you, Projeni. I'm not going to chat much up. We've got spacing charts and so forth. So those have been done, and we're negotiating with the local authorities around that. The dome's very different in that every single event needs a special JOC process and approval, which allows us to bespoke develop plans for each specific event or client.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mike. There's a lot going on. Wow, gosh, everybody. There is just so much going on, and it's really great to see. If you can all put your cameras back on. And we've extended our recording just a little bit because we have a few key questions that I need to ask you. Thank you for all of that. I'm so happy to see the level of safety and the level of protocols that are in place and the level of partnerships. And that is really, really helpful to us as organizers and suppliers to the industry. Shaun, I want to ask you, considering your passion for the marketing part of it and all of that, how do we communicate? I know you're all doing this in the background. And what I'm not seeing enough of, and maybe, I don't know, I have my head under a rock somewhere, but how do we start communicating all of what you guys are doing to our exhibitors, to our attendees, to the public at large?
Projeni, thanks. I think and the theme that runs through this at this moment is the uncertainty around this. And I don't want to be a naysayer in terms of this, but if you look at all of us, and one of the questions that came up just now is the social distancing 1.5 meters or 2 meters? There's a hell of a lot of uncertainty around there. From our side, we're obviously taking the lead from SOHO, and as the regulations change and update, we will be releasing as we do. I mean, right now, any organizers that have engaged with us, we have got let's call it a standard sort of idea of where this is going. But we're urging people to understand that at this point in time, this is what our interpretation is of what's going to be happening. And, I think Mike alluded to it as well. And we're very much in a similar sort of situation to the Dome, where the majority of our events, and especially the exhibition events, will need to get JOC approval, and they will have to be custom made to a certain extent. So, you've got to be hesitant to scare people off or to overpromise and underdeliver. And I think, everybody wants certainty in this world at the moment, but I think it would be remiss of us to promise things that we won't be able to deliver at this stage. I think it's going to be in the next month or two, we'll get a bit more clarity on this, and especially when they open the numbers up. If it's 100, if it's 500, if it's 10 square meters, 5 square meters, 3 square meters, whatever it happens to be, I think that the clarity will come out there. Right now, nobody's going to be able to put their hand on their heart and say to their clients, this is what will be happening. And I think we just need to be a little bit careful about promising what we can't deliver in terms of this.
Absolutely. But I'm assuming, like, the general stuff that we know we definitely can keep to is the hand sanitizing, and the fact that you will be, your catering departments are, I mean, every 30 minutes an alarm's going off, and there's cleaning the air, and the utensils are being cleaned. I think those kind of things. I mean, I know even when you go to restaurants and when you see the protocols that they have in place, you'll go back because you feel, well, they're taking extra precautions, right?
Yeah, I think, in fairness, the group, the 80 odd people that are on this webinar right now, we all know what we're going to be doing and how that's going to be done. And I think, in fairness, event organizers probably, and again, I hope I'm right here, have faith in the larger venues that we are going to abide by what we have to do, and we will make every possible effort to secure health and safety. And I think we've always done that. I think it's a case of how do we get that out to general public, and how do we get that out to the exhibitor market. I don't really know that, and I mean, we can provide the literature. How that then gets out is really up to individual organizers to be able to say, look, we're going to Sandton Convention Center. They are going to follow the protocols. Here's the list that Shaun sent me through of what's going to be done. How do you get them to understand and buy into that is really the question. And I don't have a firm answer for you on that, to be honest.
No, that's fine. Adele, I'm going to ask you this one. We had a question about, and maybe you can all share some thought, but Adele, I'm going to target you with this one. If an event was scheduled for Jan to March in 2021 and the ban on public gatherings has been lifted, right? But a client needs to now move the booking until later in the year because there's low demand. And I mean, there's lots of events that's being booked for, like we've seen, the first quarter. Would you as a venue allow the client to postpone to later in the year at no additional cost?
It is a bit of a tricky question, but we've had that already from some of our organizers who are pretty much in the space where they are concerned if they book now, what will the situation look like that time next year? And the only thing we can really offer is to treat things pretty much on a case-by-case basis, because it would depend on the opportunity cost later in the year if we've got space available or if we've got something else in that space that we potentially have to sacrifice. But I think the main thing for us into 2021 is being a lot more flexible about how we do our contracts, our deposits, the cancellation terms. And as I said, on a case-by-case basis, it's very difficult for 2021 to put a line in the sand and to say, this is how we will work, because I think the organizers do need that support and flexibility in the contracts.
I see. Craig, I see you are nodding away there. You can put your mic on.
Yes, Projeni, we're looking at it exactly the same way. I have to concur with Adele. I mean, every case is unique. And it's also timing. You know, if there's sufficient timing, just to say in the open, yes, we would allow it free of charge, would be impossible to say. Somebody can come 2 weeks before the time and say, listen, I can't do it anymore. And we haven't had the opportunity to then perhaps sell that space to somebody else. So every situation is unique, and I think a shared understanding that the risk doesn't only go one way, but we need to accommodate. As venues, we need to accommodate clients, but clients also need to accommodate the venues.
Absolutely. And I suppose, yes, I know everybody's timelines in terms of cancellations and postponements, you've all been very flexible on that. I mean, I use 3 out of the 5 of your venues, and that's been really accommodating. But say, for example, Craig, what would be a reasonable, or to any of you, what would be a reasonable time to make that decision? So my event is in March and the demand has been exceptionally low. What would be a reasonable time to give you as a venue to let you know that I'm fearful now of just, having a bad event because the participation numbers are looking low? Anybody?
If you ask me directly, firstly, so that we give an answer. Once again, every situation is different. It depends on the venue that is being booked, and it depends on the type of event that is potentially being hosted. For instance, if it's exhibition halls and all the halls in CPICC 1, well, that would be very difficult to resell. Whereas if it's a meeting in one of the meeting rooms for conference for hopefully 300 packs, and I say hopefully 300 packs, that venue would be slightly easier to sell. So each situation is definitely needs to be taken on its own merits. Okay.
Scott, so if you were hosting an event in April at the ICC and there was an outbreak and our numbers started rising during that time and there was an outbreak, how would you guys be able to assist an organizer? What would be the advisable thing to do?
I think really the number one thing is around the partnership between the event organizer and the venue. So the first thing that I'd want to know is what is the organizer thinking in that scenario? If it's an outbreak and it's not enough to cause a full-on shutdown, does the organizer still want to proceed with their event? What are their numbers looking like? Is it still viable for them to proceed with their event? Or are they inclined then to look at perhaps a postponement or something like that? If they want to proceed with the event, then we want to look at how can we assist them to reassure their attendees about safety, what communications can we assist them with to ensure that their event can still run successfully if that's the route that they want to go down. If they want to go the other route, if they want to look at alternate dates, then how do we look at working with them so that it's fair to both parties? For us, we generally try to keep bookings within the financial year, and we're more flexible if we can find an alternate date where we've got venues available and we can assist the event organizer then with a venue on an alternate date, but we can still retain that revenue within our financial year. So then we would assist them in that way if that was the route that they wanted to go, and then buying more time when hopefully that outbreak can then be contained, and then hopefully sometime in the future it's probably more a better climate for them to run that event in, then that would be the route that we try and assist them with.
Okay, Mike, this one is for you. So there was one of the questions, I don't know if you all saw that, where we said if there was a case or two, I mean, and we've seen it in retail centers, in shopping centers and stores, in our offices, where there's a case of COVID and that person has been present, and generally speaking, there's been an office closure, there's been a shutdown, and then they clear up, they have to, move everybody out of that space. Now, what if this happens during an event?
So Projeni, there's a couple of answers to that. So the consolidated AAXO requires you as a workplace to have requirements, and they talk about their closing. Now, the idea that we're trying to do with the Department of Tourism and the Department of Sport is actually write specific requirements in our space. Because as we did with the proof of concept event that we did back in July, we had to wait 10 days post that to determine if any declared cases came through. So until we could say, yes, it was a success, we had to wait that time period. And we were happy to say afterwards, we didn't get one single transmission that was declared to us. So I think it has to then come down to all of our staff that are working in contractor spaces need to be health surveilled for a period of time. And they will be if they're in the office space or they're at the workspace. So when they're coming to the venue is the fail safe. It's the final verification process. And that's what we're going to try and put in place in multiple spaces. So when we're working, you're being checked every single day and you're verifying that. So that when you're coming to the venue, actually your biggest risk is actually your visitor, not your worker, so to speak. So the staff are being monitored, and every person along the supply chain has to take responsibility. And that's how everything should be set up anyway. So whether you're a contractor, whether you're a supplier, whether you're an event organizer, whoever's in that chain, they already have to have health and safety systems. COVID-19 is just making us be more responsible to that, I think.
Absolutely agree. So, you know what, I think it's just been so insightful chatting with each of you. I think lots of the questions, and I'm just looking at some of the questions here, and lots of them have repeated themselves or have asked very similar questions. And I think what's key that's come out from this is that ability for us to be able to communicate our challenges as organizers to the venue, to venues. Each case is different. Each event is unique in its own right, depending on the timing when it's going to be held. There's so many variables, like you said, Shaun, it's really so hard to predict what and if those kind of situations will happen. But I just wanted to say a very big thank you to all of you. I'm in 30 seconds each, I'd like you all to just, in closing, give us a few comments after hearing each other. Shaun, can we start with you? You're on mute.
And I'm back on mute and I'm off again. So I think I'm pretty positive about this. I think, you know, the industry as a whole wants to get back to business, and we will do what we need to do to get back to business. I think all the panelists have made the same point. Engage with the venues, engage with your clients, get yourself on the marketing trail now and get your events up and ready to run in 2021. I firmly believe that we will have to go ahead in 2021. I don't think financially, economically, the country can afford not to. And I think sanity needs to prevail at some point, and we need to get back to business from early 2021.
Thank you for your commitment to our industry, Shaun. Adele?
think I'm happy to see that there's so much alignment between the venues of our way of thinking forward. And I can just sum it up in 3 words, and I think that would be that going forward, our main focus needs to be transparency, communication, and collaboration. If we can get that right across the industry, we will survive. So yeah, thank you for everyone who participated, and it was a great session.
Thank you for your insights, Adele. Scott, over to you.
Yeah, thanks very much. I think it's been a very informative afternoon, and it's great to see that we're making strides in the right direction. I think thanks to what the industry is doing through the Events Council, I think we need to commend them for the work that they're doing and do what we can to support them. And I think we should also not sit back. I think we should redouble our efforts, and we should continue pushing in so that we can be back at full steam as soon as possible. And really, the things around collaboration, the things around partnership, the discussions around creativity, and the lessons that we've learned during this time, new ways of doing business. I think these are the things that are going to make us stronger as an industry and more successful in 2021 and beyond.
Thank you, Scott. Definitely. Collaboration is key, and I think we've learned that over the past 5 months more than ever. Mike.
I think in closing, Projeni, we come back to the C words that we were using in our proof of concept, which is, COVID-19 is the big one. Then we've got communication, collaboration, creative, which Shaun's touched on, and then level of comfort. And, those are the 5 key words that kind of seem to be resonating every time we're getting together and talking about solutions for our industry.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And we keep finding them. And I'm going to put you all on the spot very soon after Craig, because he started, I'm going to let him end.
Thanks, Brittany. Thanks for inviting me to this. I think for me, I'm very positive. I think the industry is going to recover. I personally think that people need to meet. People need to. I have to agree with what Shaun said just now. I'm so over these Zoom conferences now. They just happen every day. But I'm positive the industry will recover. I am concerned about international events, and because I'm concerned about the quarantine requirements, because I don't think people will travel if there are quarantine requirements on either side. So I am concerned about that, but at least national is open. So I think we can show the industry we are ready to host events. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Craig. Thank you to you all for sharing and willing to hold the industry's hands. Because like I've said before, and I'll say it again, together we can reopen our industry. We can't wait to see you all face to face and to be able to shake your hand again and meet in person. That will be so important. But I do believe the venues are an integral part of our ecosystem in terms of events and exhibitions. And I'm so glad that we've had the opportunity to bring you all together. And as part of AAXO's mission to support the industry, I am bringing you all and electing you all onto the AAXO Venue Committee, just so you know, in case you don't know. It's newly formed as of today, but I would appreciate all your input on a committee of sorts so that we can hear your voice as venue organizers, venues, and your input into the industry. And it is really, really crucial to have you represented with Mike and I on the South African Event Council as well. And we look forward to hearing your voice. So thank you all. Thank you to all of you who have been listening online and staying with us. We know we've gone over our time limit. We do apologize, but it has been such immensely valuable discussions. We look forward to seeing you all again. We are very excited. Next week, we are hosting another, unfortunately, a masterclass. I'm not going to call it a Zoom anything. It is a masterclass with our an international speaker, and that's Andy Preston. He's going to be running a workshop for our AAXO members on selling in a corona and a post-corona economy. We hope that you'll find that valuable and it'll help your businesses. So please do contact us, watch out on social media for the details for registration for that. And we have a few many more valuable sessions coming up and workshops coming up for all our members in the weeks to come that we hope will help you as businesses to expand your businesses, to grow your businesses, and to find new opportunities amidst the pandemic. Thank you all to our panelists for joining us, and thank you to Shaun at DMG for hosting the event today. And goodbye to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks, Projeni.
Yes, bye-bye.
Yes.